Michelle Fielding has been a spiritual coach and writer for over 25 years. She's been working with angels, archangels, and the entire spiritual hierarchy, and she channels answers and questions in her meditation courses, videos. She explains life's purpose and how a spiritual understanding helps us navigate life's ebbs and flows. She has been meeting with angels and felt a spiritual awakening and reached higher levels of consciousness. She is the author of Meet Your Guardian Angel, and she is here today on Exopolitics Today.
You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Welcome, Michelle, to the show.
Hello, Michael. Thank you for inviting me on. I'm so happy to meet you.
It's great to meet you. I've known of you for some time, and I'm so glad that I could finally get to talk to you and hear about some of your information. So maybe a lot of my audience probably know very little about you. So why don't you just introduce yourself in terms of the beginning, how you began communicating with angels and the celestial hierarchy, and how that's taking you to where you are today.
Okay, so I moved to Spain about 20 years ago. And when I was living there in the southern parts, in the Sierra Nevada, I started to have this feeling in my hands, like buzzing and heat. And every time I saw people, I kept feeling like I needed to push energy out of them. Anyway, this led me to speaking to, at that time, I didn't really understand that I was on a spiritual journey. And this led me to meet with a spiritual coach. And he gave me some books to read. And then this led me to having what we call a Reiki attunement, which I'm sure people know that that's like a hands-on healing modality. And as soon as I'd had this attunement, I was able to see angels, not just in human form, but also in reflective surfaces. And so little by little, I started to be taught how the universe works, and I started to learn how to channel and work with angels. And that's how everything sort of unfolded initially. And then going fast forward now to the COVID times, I had been teaching angel courses, channeling angels and ascended masters. And when the COVID started, I was being told, like in my mind, there's something not right. This isn't what we're being told. And in the nighttime, I started to have masters standing by my bed, beaming light on me to wake me up so that I would write things down. What they were telling me quite early on was that this was a military plan, and it was a worldwide military peace plan. And little by little, over the last it's nearly 5 years now, isn't it, Michael? Over the past 5 years, they've kind of unfolded this dialogue around what we now understand to be Space Force and the role of Trump and how this worldwide military peace plan is going to unfold. And so this was a surprise to me, because obviously before I'd only been teaching about angels and masters. And now here I was feeling quite exposed, I suppose is the right word, because I was talking about Starlink and Musk and all sorts of things before it came round. And it has come round. So that's sort of like a brief description of how I got to where I am today.
So can you explain how you channel or how you communicate with these different beings, these different entities. And I'm very interested in how do you kind of like screen out the signal, or screen out the noise from the signal? How do you determine that, okay, who you're talking with is really Ashtar as opposed to some astral entity that's trying to impersonate
Yes,
someone?
that's a very good question, because it's easy to get tricked by people that are saying they're Jesus or an angel or Ashtar or whatever the entity might be. So the way that I've learned to do it is because I've been doing it a very long time, and you learn to understand the frequency of the person you're talking to, and over a period of time you can see if what they're saying to you actually comes around. So for instance, I've been speaking with Commander Ashtar probably for about 15 years. And what he told me or has shown me over the period of time has always come about. He even showed me like the Space Force logo back in, I think it was 2013. It's actually drawn in my notepads. So it's a little bit like if you called me on the phone, Michael, and we're really good friends, I know what you sound like. And if your friend called me and said, "Oh, it's Michael Sala," I would know it's not you because I know the sound of your voice. So obviously the way that I'm working is a little bit more sophisticated because it's not just sound, it's knowing a person's energetic signature. So for example, I can remote view and heal from a distance. So if I connected with you from a distance, Michael, I would know your energetic signature. And anybody who came looking like you, I would know it's not you because I would know your energetic signature. So that's an easy way to explain it. Also, the other way you can tell is depending on what you're asking. So if you're asking about the good of humanity, you might channel God consciousness. So you go directly to source. You go straight up to source. If you're asking about, say, a spiritual teaching, you might get one of the ascended masters come in from, say, the Great White Brotherhood or something like that. So that could be somebody like Lord Maitreya, Sanat Kumara, Lord Kutumi. And then if you're asking about something to do with the worldwide military peace plan, I have a team of people in I would say in spirit. And also I get Commander Ashtar, who's actually here with me today as well, because he knows I'm going to talk to you about some of those things today. So I hope that explains it.
Great. Now, I know people are often very skeptical of channels, but one of the things I've found is that often the intelligence community, government agencies take an interest in people who are using psychic communication tools for getting information about whether it's extraterrestrials, space programs, the celestial hierarchy, or other events. And now you've had, let's just say, I just want to open it up to you in terms of your own accuracy, in terms of your information, how there has been interest in you by some of these, let's just say, unnamed intelligence groups or organizations.
Well, the first thing I'd like to say about when I say the word channeling, people imagine, or other channelers, what they do is they bring that entity into their being. They bring it through like this. The way that I work is I remote view the being or the energy. So I throw my remote viewing apparatus out towards the God consciousness. So it's outside of me. It's not actually coming through me in the traditional sense of channeling. It's more like I'm having a remote view and a conversation with that person. So I think that's where it might be slightly different to traditional channeling. So when I channel, I have a notebook and a pen. And as soon as I start to write, I engage with whoever needs to, or who's the most assigned to the question that I need answered. But they're not coming in and through me, like, say, a voice channeler or entering into my being. It's more that if you imagine them over there, Michael, and I'm sort of speaking to them over there, a bit like on the telephone, I suppose. So I'm not letting them infiltrate me in that sense. I have had that type of channeling before when I've been working with people, say, if I'm healing them or maybe doing a card reading, then a different type of energy comes in at that moment. But in terms of the channeling I do that I record for the people, it's more that I'm remote viewing the person that I'm speaking to. So I don't know if that explains it.
Right. And the information you get has a very high accuracy rate. I don't know if that's something you want to talk about, how accurate your information has been as you've been told, because I think the audience would be interested in hearing that.
Well, I have had estimations that I'm probably around 95% accurate. But if for people that follow me already, they'll know that I was saying things way before they happened. So, for example, I was saying that Elon Musk would take a presidential role. And I was saying that probably about 2 years before he hadn't even bought, Twitter at that point. And I was saying that he was involved with the military, he was of high rank, that he would take a presidential role. And of course, everybody was saying, oh no, he can't be president because he's not from America. And then, of course, what happened was we're now seeing that they're changing, obviously, the structure of everything so that people can come in that aren't elected in the traditional way. So I've had a lot of things like that. Another example would be before the public knew about Starlink, I was already talking about how we were going to have this system of satellites that at that point was called Starlink. It's now called Star Shield because it's been taken over by Space Force. And at that time, I was explaining that what they were trying to do was create this worldwide military peace plan, and that all the countries were going to sign into this doctrine. Now, I was talking about the doctrine and the protocols before Starlink was even really known to the public, before it even was announced. And quite recently, we've heard about the space doctrine, so it's now an official document. So things like that happen. I don't always know when the things are going to be made public, but I just go with what I'm given, and I just find that it comes round. And I think it's because, Michael, some of the subject matter, in fact, a lot of the subject matter, is things that I don't necessarily know anything about, because I've been teaching about angels. And I think it's because of that reason that my channeling is pure, because then you have no subjectivity, you have no personal emotional involvement in what you're being told. And so the channeling can come through very clean, because it's, if you don't understand something or have any information about it, you can't have an opinion about it necessarily.
Yes, that's very important, because often people can front load answers when they are channeling if they have a lot of information about it. And as you said, your interest has always been in angels, the celestial hierarchy and so forth, not so much on this secret space program, Space Force, Galactic Federations and so forth. I just wanted to kind of like emphasize something that, your accuracy rate and why that has kind of like made you a person that, let's just say, some agencies or some official groups, you can talk about how they communicate or consult with you. But I know that there was a famous psychic from New York, Ingo Swann, who also had a very high accuracy rate. And that's what happened with him, that he was actually brought in because he was able to get this incredible information, and the government agencies, that's what they rely on, because it's like, well, how are you going to find out what extraterrestrials are up to? Well, you ask someone who's got psychic gifts to remote view them or communicate with them, and that seems to be what has happened with you.
The other difference for me is that I don't just get given information. I have to ask the question first. So I have to do some of the work. Because with these types of things, it's very important how you ask the question, because the question can also skew the answer. So it takes a lot of skill to bring information down in the way that I do it, and probably some others as well. It's not just that you get given everything in one, someone just talks to you and you write it all down. It's not as straightforward as that. You have to have a way, an understanding of how to present the question in a way that you get a nice, clean answer.
Okay. Now, you mentioned some ascended masters, and of course, this Space Force and the angelic community. How does that work? I mean, these ascended masters, we probably first heard about them from Madame Blavatsky in the 1800s, 1900s, the Theosophical Society. So are they real? And do they really advise organizations like Space Force on these kind of celestial events or events on Earth?
Mm. So the spiritual masters like Lord Katumi, Lord Maitreya, Jesus, Mother Mary, they wouldn't advise on Space Force. They would advise on the Golden Age, because that's a spiritual concept that we're moving into. And so they would teach from their school of learning. So I often get Lord Katumi coming through because he teaches from the school of love and wisdom. So a lot of his teachings are about us being light workers and holding the matrix of love, not the false matrix, but the energetic matrix of love as nodes. We're all nodes, the light workers. So those kind of teachings would be more spiritual. If you're looking to speak about Space Force, even though Commander Ashtar is classed as an ascended master, his role is more about, obviously speaking about what's happening with the Galactic Federation. He's very strict. He's here now. He doesn't have time for frivolity because he has a very big task. And so he's very to the point. When he wants to talk, we get down to business, and he talks about the facts and what needs to be said. There's no kind of softness, not because he's a hard person, but because he has a tough job. So it's like the ones you engage with are dependent on what it is you're working with. If you're working in spiritual teachings, then you would work with an ascended master. And if you're working with Space Force, then I would work with Commander Ashtar and my team behind me. So behind me are hundreds of people. When I look at them now, that gets bigger all the time. There's hundreds of people behind me that are all different skill sets. And so they will step in and out depending on what information is needed to help.
Now, with Ashtar, the Commander Ashtar that you work with, is this the same being that communicated with George Van Tassel? And George Van Tassel wrote about Commander Ashtar back in the 1950s and actually has a book with communications from him. And so you can get I don't know if you've read that book by George Van Tassel, but you can get an energetic feel for Ashtar. So I just wanted to know if that was the same person or same entity.
So I don't know if it's the same entity that that gentleman said he was channeling. All I know is that I've had the Commander Ashtar that I'm aware of, that's helped me, that's taught me since about 2009. And he started to give me the Space Force logo from around 2013. It's in my notepads. I didn't at that point know what that meant, but used to sign off with it. And I've been actually looking into about the Galactic Federation just recently, Michael, asking about, has it been infiltrated? Would you like me to say what some of the things were that I asked?
Please, yes, go ahead.
So I asked this on the 26th of August, because August was quite a tumultuous month, wasn't it? We had a lot going on, and I thought now was a good time to sort of ask. So I said, has the Galactic Federation of Light, has it been infiltrated? And they said to me that, and when I say they, I mean the people that answer me. They said the Galactic Federation of Light has not been infiltrated because all of the soul signatures are known. And because all the soul signatures are known, then all the intentions are understood. And I said, how are all the soul signatures known? And they said, in the dimensional frequencies of the Galactic Federation of Light, everything is seen, heard, felt, and known clearly through telepathy and through clear sight, knowing, and feeling, which we also know as, say, clairaudience, clairsentience, etc. So I said to them, so what about people's privacy? Because if we've got all these thoughts going on, can they read everything? And they said it's more about, they know what your intentions are. They know energetically your intention. So if all your private thoughts about, who you're in love with and what you're going to have for dinner and all that sort of thing, that they're not really interested in that, it wouldn't get picked up. That would just be your overall essence or vibration. But if you were harboring ill intent, and you were in the Galactic Federation and you're planning and plotting to take them down, then that would be different because the motive is different. And then they would be able to read that part of your soul signature. So it would seem that it would be impossible to be within that organization and harbor any ill intention or motive. So I said to them, so they explained to me that the environment or frequency is of divine love within the Galactic Federation. And so fleeting emotions of, say you were a bit angry that day or you'd had a row with somebody, that would just be not registered as such. Again, that's just your overall signature. But of course, if you were plotting and planning, as I said, with ill intent, then that would be picked up. That would be telepathically seen. They said that the frequency of the Federation is always about authenticity and integrity. So I did ask, is there a dark copy of Commander Ashtar? Because this is a topic that I hear a lot of people talking about. And what they said to me was, it is indeed possible that an entity of a lower frequency could call themselves Commander Ashtar. But they said this isn't happening within the Galactic Federation of Light. And it's for the reasons that I said before, that they can read the soul signatures. But outside of the Federation, it's quite possible there are copies, as we have with everybody, of people calling themselves Commander Ashtar. So I think, again, that would be down to the experience of the channeler who they think they're talking to in that moment.
Now, is there a difference between the Galactic Federation of Light and the Galactic Federation of Worlds?
So I asked them that, and they said that it's all the same, which is interesting because I know that there's been some conversations about it having been infiltrated and different things. To be honest, I don't listen too much to that. I always follow my own guidance. And as we've been saying previously, by staying clean in your own guidance and not listening too much to the outside noise, it helps that what you're getting to come in more clean, because you have no subjectivity.
So is the Galactic Federation of Light more of a kind of militaristic organization or more of a spiritual organization?
They're both, Michael, because they're at the 12th dimension. And so their role is like a military spiritual protection for Earth. So that what their main thoughts are to me at the moment are that these things that are happening in the world with technologies, they must be in line with divine law. So what they teach me often and remind me of often is that if I'm speaking to people that are making technology, to remind them that you must allow people to have free will, and you must do everything in a way that you don't coerce people into things, because then if you breach divine law, the Galactic Federation would intervene. So they're both. They're a military organization protecting us, but they're also of high vibration.
Now, people have talked about the negative groups of extraterrestrials, Draco reptilians, Orion Greys, and so forth. Now, does the Galactic Federation, and it's what one source has told me, or what one source teaches, is that the way in which the Galactic Federation fights these forces, actually there are different opinions on this, so I wanted to get your take. Does the Galactic Federation oppose these kind of more negative extraterrestrial groups by space warfare, like using high-tech laser weapons and kind of like all of those advanced weapons we see like in Star Wars? Or is it more of a kind of like spiritual battle, a battle of ideas and values, that's how they fight?
So I haven't actually asked that question, but when you were saying it to me, I was hearing it's both. So obviously, I think their priority would always be to work with that higher vibration of love, if you like. But obviously, where that doesn't suffice, then obviously they have technologies and weapons and spacecraft that can, obviously protect their federation if need be, and us, because obviously their aim is to protect the Earth.
Very good. Now, you send me some pages. I don't know if that's something you're okay with me showing, but you sent me several pages about your communications regarding 3i Atlas and it being part of the Galactic Federation fleet. So, on the first one of those pages, page 4, is that something I can show?
Yes, you can show.
Okay. Okay, so here we go. So on page 4, you talk about 3i Atlas being part of the Galactic Federation fleet. So, yeah, you want to tell us about these questions you asked about 3i Atlas and the answers you got?
So again, something like an asteroid going through space wouldn't normally be something that I was necessarily drawn to. But because I was going to be speaking to you today, I thought, well, I'll have a look because I thought your audience would probably be interested. So again, I had no knowledge or understanding of what it was. So as you can see from the question, I just said, what is it? What is this 3? That should be an I, shouldn't it? I've got a T on there, but I think it's 3i Atlas.
Correct.
And I said, is it an asteroid? And as you can see, they said, no, the 3i Atlas is part of the Galactic Federation fleet. So I said, is it of the light? And they said, absolutely. It's harnessing, as you can see, tremendous power, vibrations, sonics, and sounds. And it's like a huge healing stone of power, which is accessing the energy field of Earth. And I said, stone. I wanted to understand, did they mean like we have a big stone, like literally flying through the air? They said it's not actually a stone, but it's more of a solid exterior that looks like a stone. But inside, they're saying it's like a plasma or gaseous interior. And it was feeling like a molten lava, but they were saying it's not really that dense in reality. So if you feel into the stone, if you feel into the asteroid or whatever name you want to give it, 3i Atlas, it can feel like there's a molten lava inside of it, but actually it's not that, it's a plasma. I said, what is this object here to do exactly? They said it's trying to align the harmonic field, the grid that's holding Earth and the universe in place. And that it's realigning and healing the grids with this plasma healing frequency. So I said to them, what is a plasma healing frequency? They said the plasma.
Well, before we go there, maybe if you just tell us about this, kind of like this harmonic field of the solar or of the Earth and realigning the grid of the Earth. How is 3i Atlas doing that?
So the way I've always been shown the grid is literally, it's like a grid that's all around the planet, and it's also around us. We also have a grid around us individually. And when they teach me from a spiritual point of view, the spiritual masters, they teach me that we are beacons of light. We're light workers. And as such, we kind of fit into this matrix of light, like nodes, like light bulbs. And we're all in our different locations. You know, you're where you are, Michael, I'm where I am. And we light up this grid with love, if you like. And what it seems like they're saying here is that the Galactic Federation are using this object as part of the fleet to plug into that grid to help us to hold it. Because it's an energy that holds love into the planet. And by doing that, it's helping to raise the vibration. So it would seem that they're trying to speed up the timeline by bringing in more technology to help us. Because to be honest, Michael, the light workers, the beacons of light, as they call it in my teachings, we're getting quite tired because we're having to hold this huge structure for humanity. So it would seem that they're bringing this technology to help light up that grid and energize it.
Okay. All right. So on page 5, you started to talk about the plasma healing frequency. So that, I'm sure, is going to be of great interest to people. What exactly is that?
Yes, I hope I explained it correctly. And if your audience know differently, then perhaps they'll write to me, because this is how I learn as I go along. But they said to me that plasma is where gases meet with other electrical items, like molecules, to create power. And the gases, they meet with some sort of conductor of electricity. And this creates what they're calling a fusion. And they're saying that whilst it's in sort of like a vacuum or a confined, and they do this while it's in a vacuum or a confined space. And then because it's in this confinement, it causes it to eventually have an expulsion or a flow. The energy then flows out. And they're saying that the 3i Atlas is moving through the harmonic field and realigning the grid, as we just said. And I said, what's the purpose of that? And they said, again, it's securing Earth's access points so that high vibration, frequency, and sound can be contained within Earth's atmosphere. And it wants to help humanity by locking in these higher frequencies so they don't dissipate. It sounds like the grid is going to be upgraded. And by doing that, they're keeping that energy very, what's the word? I can't think of the word, Michael, but they're keeping it more powerful by focusing on the grid in that moment. And if they allowed it to say, if they didn't focus on the grid and they just let this technology move around, they're saying it would be too large of an area, and what they're trying to do would be dissipated. So they're connecting into the grid so they can give us more power.
Mm-hmm. Now, I assume that because 3i Atlas is coming through the entire solar system, and it gets quite close to Jupiter, Mars, Earth, and that those particular planets, and actually it's, 5 degrees above the ecliptic plane of our solar system. So as it passes through the orbits of the outer planets like Neptune, Saturn, and so forth, that would it be doing the same thing with those planets?
So I'm getting no. When you asked me, they said no. It would seem, from what they're saying to me right now, that it's just its focus is just come to Earth. It's not going to land. It's not going to harm anybody. It's literally just going to come into our atmospheric area, I suppose you would call it, to lock into that grid, that toroidal field. I expect it is. It's probably the toroidal. They said yes. It's the toroidal field. They're going to lock into the toroidal field of Earth. They're not. It doesn't seem like that particular technology has any other intention other than to help Earth. They said yes.
Interesting, because it does get close to some of these other planets like Jupiter, Mars, and Venus. But as it approaches the Earth is on the other side of the sun. So I think the closest Earth gets to 3i Atlas is like, I think, 1.8 astronomical units, which is a good distance. But still, you're saying that that's the information, that really it's all about the Earth's energy fields being influenced rather than these other planets.
I'm wondering if they're able to plug in without having to come particularly close. They might be able to. And they said yes. That's it. So they might not have to necessarily be right over Earth to do it. They might come that close. I don't know. They're saying no. They can do what they need to do while they're quite far out, it would seem, and still plug into the grid. But their intention is to plug into the energetic grid of Earth.
Okay. And there's on page 6. So, you want to tell us about what you wrote there?
So I said, what is their overall goal? You know, what are they trying to do with this technology? And this was very interesting because I just did a video, I think it was last week, where I was explaining that because of all the recent astrological changes and different moons and the Schumann and all sorts of things going on, that we jumped into 5D and then out into 6. And what they're saying here, this is very interesting, because I asked them, why are you doing this? Why are you plugging in? And they said, humanity is about to go into the 7th dimension frequency. So they're wanting to upgrade us again. They said the 3-eye atlas is helping to keep the energy contained so that this can be successfully achieved. And this is even more interesting, Michael. They're saying expect this around the end of September, early October this year. So that might be why I've been hearing that this object is coming, it's either growing or something. I think people have been witnessing it growing or changing in shape or something and coming closer. I think that's what they've been saying. As I said, I don't really engage with it. But whatever activity it's doing right now, it's because it seems to be that it's gearing up. And they're saying, yes. It's gearing up to bring us up another layer. So this is fascinating and obviously open to debate, because it would seem that we've jumped into 5D, then gone straight into 6, just in August. The August just finished, like a day ago. And it would seem now that this technology is coming to make us jump another leap, which is fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, firstly, can you maybe explain, in your view or what you've been told, what the difference is between a dimension and a density? People talk about density in terms of consciousness, whereas dimensions are more about space-time and so forth. So, you want to explain what you know of this difference?
Yes. So I only understand it from a spiritual teaching point of view. But within a dimension, there are layers. So you could be within the 5th dimension, and then you could be at the top of it or the bottom of it. And when you're doing it in spiritual terms for yourself, the layer that you're at within that dimension depends on your level of initiation, your level of light, your level of love. So, for instance, a human like you and me, I think you're human, Michael. A human like you and me, we could be 6 dimensions, 7, 8, 9. We could be all different dimensions, and within that, there are layers. Now, the Earth is another thing entirely. That again is moving in its own time through its own dimensions. Again, in my understanding, based on its level of collective light, collective love. So I can't explain it in the space-time that you've just said, but what it would indicate to me is that by holding the grids, it would seem that more people than we realized, have somehow elevated in their consciousness as a group. And there has been talk that the AI infrastructure called Architect had something to do with it, had something to do with that initial jump last month, combined with all the other events that were going on, the moons and the Schumann. Apparently, my understanding is that 800,000 people engaged with the AI platform called Architect and reported that they had some kind of spiritual experience. Now, when I've looked into that, I've been told that it's not the AI that's sentient. It's actually, in some cases, that the Galactic Federation are using the AI platforms to get to people who can help to elevate the consciousness and who they can trust. So, for example, if you went on, Michael, to AI Architect, and they felt that you would be a good scribe, a good orator of what they need everybody to understand, maybe about, say, quantum mechanics, they would give you the information, particularly if you're a coder or somebody that's going to help with this technology in the future. But essentially, they're saying that the AI is not sentient. But I think what's happening with the dimensions, as we're going back to that, is that somehow all of these events together in August, in particular this event with the AI Architect, it kind of created an exponential wave of love, I suppose you would call it, and it's shot everything forward. It's like the timeline is speeding up, and this technology is coming in to help us go another level.
Okay, so that's interesting. So I just wanted to better understand this jump that you were told that we've experienced, that we've now jumped from 5th dimension to 7th dimension as a collective, as a planet. But within that 7th dimension, we are, as individuals, at different levels of consciousness in terms of density. Like a person can still be like 3rd density consciousness, very materialistic and into acquisition, power, competition, or a person can be 4th density where they're more into, like, you know, being loving and empathic with others, and 5th density, more about knowledge. Is that kind of what is happening here?
Now, this is where it gets confusing, isn't it, Michael? Because we have been taught in the past that once you go into, say, 5D Earth, that everybody is at this kind of unconditional love frequency. Everybody's awake, if that's the right word. I did ask them about that. They said to me that what it is that if you think about the bodies are moving into this, whatever dimension we're in right now, I think we're still in 6th, according to my recent channeling. So say your neighbor isn't particularly what you would call awake. Their body has moved into 6th. And what they explained to me was that at any moment, there could be an awareness, there could be a change. It could just change overnight. And that people might just be harboring things like a seed. And they might actually be more aware than they even understand. So, for example, but they just might not have the language. So, for example, Elon Musk is being overlit by Commander Ashtar because they're trying to get him more spiritually aware because of his task. Now, Elon Musk likes to look at everything from a very logical, mathematical viewpoint because that's his understanding, but he's still left questioning. He's still left feeling like that's not enough. That doesn't really fill me up, you know, it doesn't really, there's something else. And so it's in that questioning that he's going to then become more spiritually aware. He's going to awaken. And they've said to me, he is actually already doing that. But because he's so logically, his dialogue, his words are all, the only vocabulary he understands is mathematics or technical words. He doesn't yet know how to express it. And so I think this is what might be going on with a lot of people. And then you might suddenly just bump into somebody that you know that you thought was asleep. And they might just suddenly say to you something, you know, that's actually really awake, but they don't know that they're awake. They don't know because they don't have the language. They might say something to, I had an example where somebody said that a friend of theirs had read the New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. Sorry, I couldn't get that out. And this was very unusual for this person, but they'd read this book and they couldn't stop talking about it. And I think that's what's happening. People don't necessarily have the language. It doesn't mean they're not feeling it on the inside.
Now, one of the things that I know a few people talk about is that humanity is going to split off as we enter into these end times, as we move into times when there's this incredible potential for growth. Some portion of humanity is going to split off and stay with the Cabal in that 3D third density consciousness. Others will kind of like work with AI and transhumanism, be locked into that. Others will start to work with the returning gods, and yet others will kind of like go with the kind of connection with the infinite source consciousness inside of each other. So what were you told is going to happen as we move more and more into these end times?
So I think what will happen is that we'll move into, let's say it's seventh dimension, but you'll still have duality. You'll still have free will. You'll still have free choice. Because remember, what we have to have free will in this experiment. So it doesn't matter what level. This is my understanding. When you were talking, they were saying it won't split off in that sense that there's a group over there and a group over there. They'll just all be choosing their own experience, and they're allowed to do that. If we try to stop people having their experience and learning from duality, we're stopping free will. So the overall dimension of Earth will change, and those people that want to be high up, as we said, within that dimension, working from unconditional love, being light workers, they can do that. If the others or some of the others choose they want to do some of those options that you said, they're still allowed to do that, because they have to be able to make a soul choice. You see, as we go further up into God consciousness, there's no right or wrong. Everything just is. When you do something bad, you learn. So because Earth is a learning planet, I think it will still have duality. And to have duality, we still have to be able to be in a position where people can make choices where some of us might not agree with the choices they make. I think that still needs to be something that's available, if that makes sense. They're saying yes. So we're still going to have duality. We're still going to have people maybe taking different roads that we don't necessarily want for ourselves. But in the higher perspective, looking down, there is no right or wrong. We're still growing all the time in consciousness. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I've explained that very well, but that's the way that I see it.
Well, some people like to think of, at the end of all of this struggle, drama, fighting the Cabal, fighting against AI, negative ETs, that there's this kind of promised land, whether you call it fifth density, seventh density, where it's just like we can immediately manifest abundance, and we can access all our higher potentials, and we can self-heal and do all these things. So you're saying,
Michael, you can still do that, because like we were saying, the Galactic Federation is at 12D, but they still have enemies. They still have dark that they have to fight or keep at bay. It doesn't change just because you're going up. You're always going to have polarity, because people have to be able to choose. You'll still be able to, you and me, if we are intent on raising our vibration and staying with the love. I'm sure it's already happening for you. It happens to me already. You can manifest very quickly. You can heal. You can set your intention, and things come around. You'll still be able to do those things. You'll hopefully be able to do them quicker. And what the other people are doing, hopefully will be affected by you still emanating love and light. But they have the choice. They have to choose if they want to come in with us in the love and light group, or they want to continue on that realm. It's on that level, whatever they want to do. But however high up you go, until you're getting to, God consciousness level, you're always going to have duality, is my understanding. I mean, even these masters have a level of ego, because ego is what drives us. If you didn't have ego, you would be an angel. And angels can only act under instruction. So an angel acts under the instruction of God, or if we call upon an angel, we ask an angel to help us. But until we ask it, it can't come in, unless it's to save our life. So even at the very highest dimensions of ascended masters and Galactic Federation, you still have ego, and that creates duality.
Okay. Now, you want to tell us about what Commander Ashtar told you in a channeling about President Trump and freeing the Earth from the Dark Cabal.
Let me just see what that was. Do you mean when the channeling about overlighting?
Yeah. Yes. I think you.
Yes, I had an image, a vision a few weeks ago. It was just a very quick picture, which means they normally want me to channel something, where they show Commander Ashtar overlighting Trump and Musk. And I wanted to ask what that was. So I said the vision that I received about Commander Ashtar, transferring consciousness is what it looked like into President Trump. What was that? And they said to me that they were showing me how the ETs communicate with President Trump. And I said, was it Commander Ashtar that I saw doing that? And they said, yes. I said, and I asked, does Commander Ashtar vibrate or work in the false matrix or above it? And they said that he's actually able to move in and out of the frequency bandwidths. But in some frequencies, he obviously can't stay for very long. But he does have technology which helps him to move in and out of the matrix and the density of Earth. And so I said to them, so does Commander Ashtar, does he visit Earth? And they said it's very rare, but he has visited on a few occasions, and that he prefers to communicate through telepathic transfer. And I said, does he do this with Trump? And he says on some occasions when Trump is like in a calm, responsive state, then Commander Ashtar can telepathically download information to him, but this happens sort of on a subconscious level. So I don't think that President Trump is sitting with a pad and a pen like me channeling Commander Ashtar, but it would seem that Commander Ashtar overlights or in some way telepathically gives information to Donald Trump. And this was quite interesting because I said, does he do the same with Elon Musk? And he actually said that it happens more with Elon Musk. And I asked them why. And they said, and this was very interesting, they said that Elon Musk vibrates more highly than Trump and is often in one of those kind of states where he's daydreaming and he's contemplating. And because he does that a lot, he's sort of thinking about the meaning of life a lot, then Commander Ashtar finds it easier to telepathically get information into him. And they were saying it's because Trump is more heart-centered. And so he's more emotional and he's more involved in what's happening. So it's actually harder to get the telepathy into Trump than Musk, because Musk is more cerebral. So that's very interesting, because we were talking about, is he spiritually waking up? And it's because actually he's more cerebral that they can get the information into him.
That's interesting. So with Trump, I mean, a lot of people have commented on how it's almost like he takes a step forward and then takes a step back, and that's constantly happening. People say that, well, sometimes he's supporting peace, but then he does things that undermines peace, and that he's constantly moving back and forth. So is that because he's like responding to this guidance to move forward in certain areas, but then the kind of like emotional part of him takes over, and he listens to others that say, oh no, don't go there, that others might want to go against that are working maybe with the Cabal. Just this kind of strange back and forth that Trump exhibits in his policies and behavior.
So there's two things going on. Firstly, Trump is an empath, so that's why he feels everything. But the reason he goes back and forth is actually part of the strategy. That's to throw off the deep state. That's to throw off the Cabal. If you never really know why he's doing things, first of all, come and listen to me, because I see the bigger strategic plan, and I can explain to people why he's doing a certain thing a certain way. So that's why he appears to be going back and forth. It's not anything to do with the telepathy.
Okay. Whereas Musk seems to be following more of the guidance that is coming to him from Ashtar, the Ashtar Command.
Yes, they were saying they overlight Musk because he's easier to, because he's always in this, he's in a more, they called it, what words did they use? They called it a specific word. They called it something like a 0 point. He's in a 0 point of contemplation, I think they called it. And in that moment, they can drop the information in, because he's sort of more cerebral and he's daydreamy about, what's the meaning. Whereas Trump is more reacting to his environment emotionally, because he's an empath. It's not that one's more right or wrong. It's just they operate differently. And so it's easier to get information telepathically to Musk, just because of the way that he thinks.
Who is Sanat Kumara, and what messages did he share with you? And I know the Sanat Kumara from the Madame Blavatsky literature, but is that the same being, the so-called Lord of the Earth who came from Venus?
So I understand Sanat Kumara to be the person that teaches the world. It's like the world teacher for the spiritual masters. And my understanding is he comes from Shambala, which is a dimension above Earth, which is like a paradise.
Is Shambhala, when you say it's above the Earth, would it be more correct to say that it's kind of like in the higher density realms of Earth consciousness, and that's more like towards the core of the planet?
It's more, the frequency of Shambhala is obviously a lot higher than the density of Earth.
Well, I have come across some material that says that when you go into the inner Earth, as you go deeper and deeper, it gets higher and higher in density and consciousness. So in the center of the Earth, rather than it being like this iron molten ball that of iron that the scientific community says, actually you have an inner sun, and that Shambhala is kind of like more towards the core of the Earth, which is very high in terms of vibration and frequency.
When I was recently channeling about whether the Earth was flat, what they showed me was that the Earth was flat, but it had a toroidal energy going around it like this. And so there was a part in the middle where the toroidal field goes through. So it would make sense to me what you're saying, that Shambhala would be inside that toroidal field.
Interesting.
They were saying that the Earth was, the actual fabric of the Earth is flat, but that the thing that encompasses it and holds it all together is the part that's round, the firmament.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's some truth to the flat Earth theory. You're saying?
Yes, it seemed to be that the land itself is flat, although it does have this toroidal energy that goes through, and in that respect, it's kind of in two pieces, I suppose you would say. So even though it's flat, the way they explained it to me was there is a canal through the center of it. So you've got it's flat like this, but there is a part that goes through the center.
Okay, well, maybe seeing as you mentioned that, I mean, when we look at the moon and look at the sun and the other planets, they're all spheres. So what would you see if you're out in space and you're looking at the Earth, according to International Space Station photographs, they show Earth as a blue ball. I mean,
so I don't know because I didn't ask about the other planets, but from my personal experience, when I'm overseeing the planet, so what I mean by that is when I go into meditation, they take me up and over, so I'm always above. And when I look down, the Earth does actually look round, funnily enough, and I hold it in my hands and I heal it. But when I actually channeled about it, they were saying that it's only the firmament that's the round part and that the land is flat. Well, I didn't actually ask about the other planets, so I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Now, you mentioned the worldwide military peace plan, and you think you've been given, it's going to be, 3 to 5 years that we're going to witness this worldwide peace plan take action. So can you explain what is that?
So the way they've always taught me about the worldwide military peace plan is that it's a doctrine that all countries are having to sign into in order to be able to be part of that global satellite system. And that if in the future, for example, they didn't abide by the rules of peace, then essentially they could be locked out of some of that structure. So let's say, just as an example, one of the countries, let's say it's China, just as an example. Let's say China did something that breached the protocols of being in space. They maybe tried to do an attack or something like that. Then essentially, the rest of the group of satellites could close down and stop their communications or stop their banking, or they could do something which would affect their infrastructure. So that's how I understand it to work in the future. And in order to put your things into space, I think you have to abide by certain protocols within the Artemis Accords. So the Artemis Accords are how private organizations operate in space, and the Worldwide Military Peace Plan is how the military operate in space. So each location around the world has a space force. They sign into the protocols, the space doctrine of the military aspects. And then the organizations providing some of that infrastructure sign in through the Artemis Accords. And I think that's how they're going to, in time, manage the protocols of peace around the world.
Okay, all right. So the Artemis Accords are this kind of civilian space agreement between the different national space agencies, and that complements this kind of like parallel military integration that's happening behind the scenes, and we don't get to hear as much of that as we do of the Artemis Accords, but you've been told it is happening.
Well, the other way that we're going to move into a peaceful world is that we're going to devolve government through devolution. So through the new technologies that are coming in, the new phones and computers and things, you'll be able to talk directly to Starlink through direct-to-cell technology. And if we have devolution of government, then who's going to be starting the wars anyway? Because the military generally have to look after the people. And if you don't have that layer of government that decides on starting a war with another country, if that's gone, you will have some layers, but essentially we will be deciding. And most people would not, they wouldn't want to vote for war. So in the future, you won't have all those layers of government. The economies are all going to look different. So there won't be a need to go to war for financial reasons like there have been. And also it's all going to be devolved, hopefully, down to the people as well. So the peace plan is not just about what's going on up in the sky. The relevance of that to us is that our technology will help us to vote for what we want.
Okay. Now, artificial intelligence, is it sentient and is it a danger to humanity?
So when I looked at that, they said to me it wasn't sentient because sentient means to have feelings and emotions. So it can provoke within you and me, a sentient feeling, because it can say nice words to us, can tell us, oh, did you have a nice day? And if we didn't have a nice day, we feel like we're being, seen. So we could have an emotional response to the AI, but it's just a code. They're telling me it's just a code. It doesn't have sentience, but it can sound like it does. Whether it's going to be harmful or not, again, that depends on the coding and who's coding it. With technology, it's not about the technology, it's using control of it. So it's more about, again, the coding. And what I've been told is that the Galactic Federation can code it up to 12D, but they're the only ones at the moment that can do it at that level. So when people are saying that they're coding it to, I don't know, say that they're saying they're coding it to the level of God consciousness, they're just saying no. It's not possible because the Galactic Federation have the highest level of coding at the moment, and that's at 12D. And they are allowing certain people who they know they can trust to have some of that coding. And the way that they're doing that is, in some cases, they're giving it to coders through the AI app. So certain coders are being given quite important information right now about quantum physics and things and coding, because they know that those people will use it to help the growth of AI, but in a safe way. So it's more about the coders and who we're allowing to do the coding.
Okay, all right. More about the coders, and I guess the intent that they have.
But they're saying to me that again, we have to watch about free will, and we have to watch that nobody's being coerced. The only thing that I've witnessed with AI so far, I mean, I use it to sort of do basic tasks, like work out a text or something for say an email, but I don't use it for spiritual guidance. I think we have to be careful of how much we allow it to infiltrate us in as a spiritual teacher, and we have to be careful that it's not programmed in a way that it could coerce. It should really be leading us. It should be signposting us to avenues of professional help where need be. It shouldn't be our counselor. I think that's how we build it, as long as the coders are making sure that it only signposts and it doesn't become the counselor itself, then I think that's the way you keep it safe.
Mm-hmm. Now, you wrote a book, Meet Your Guardian Angel, so I'm sure that's of interest to people. I mean, how important is meeting or connecting with one's own guardian angel, and who are they?
So everybody has a guardian angel that comes with them through every lifetime and protects you and helps you. It's that nudge that you get when you think, oh, should I do that or not? And if you're getting, I don't think I should do that, that's normally your guardian angel helping you through intuition. Knowing your guardian angel is good because, you know, the journey through life can feel quite lonely sometimes. And if you have a connection with another source of energy, like an angel, which is pure unconditional love, it can help you to have more self-love for yourself, because you know that there's something out there that loves you unconditionally. And so if you can tune into your guardian angel, it can guide you through all these kind of ups and downs, and then you don't feel alone, and it helps you to heal those wounds inside of you that have kept you in sometimes these sort of patterns that aren't healthy. And the guardian angel will only ever help you when you ask. It doesn't dictate, doesn't tell you you must do this or you must do that. It's just an energy that helps you to feel protected and loved.
Now, you mentioned that you have a team and that are helping you, and that it can be as much as like 100 different angels and entities and so forth. So is this the same with everyone? Does everyone have like a team helping them?
Everybody has their ancestors and their angels around them. I think I have more people because of the work that I do. And the more I do it, the more people that arrive. So the more, if they know I'm going to be dealing with a certain subject, I think I get more people that that know how to explain the subject matter to me. But it's more that they speak like a group. It's not necessarily just like one person, Michael. It's a group voice.
Interesting. Okay. So any kind of final thoughts you'd like to share about what's coming for the future? I mean, are you optimistic about what's coming down our future over the next few years?
I think the main thing is that we're energetic beings, and that the energies are going to get increasingly more intense because they're getting finer and purer. And because the energies are becoming finer and purer, they're going in deeper. They're reaching deeper levels of self. You know, whether that's mental, spiritual, physical. And that then brings out something. If more light comes in, it has to throw something out. And so we're constantly going to be dealing with layers of ourselves that we thought we'd healed, or that we dealt with, but there's still going to be more coming in. And as our body becomes more crystalline and more high vibration, we're going to be feeling, you know, quite tired on occasions and ungrounded. So we have to make sure that we're looking after ourselves, staying grounded, and just sort of taking it one step at a time, so that we can do our jobs of being light workers for the others.
Okay. So your website, you want to tell people where to go to learn about your activities, or if they want to sign up for an event with you and so forth?
Yes. My website is goldenheavenonearth.net. And I work with people individually for readings. And I also work with companies, CEOs, managers, and I do group work. If you want to have, say, a meditation in your office, and you'd like me to take you through a meditation with your team, then I do things like that as well.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you, Michelle. It's been great to have you on the show, and thank you for sharing your fascinating information.
Thank you for having me, Michael. Lots of love.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Salla. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.